Sometimes love doesn't sound sweet. Sometimes it sounds sharp, painful, even cruel. But behind those harsh words often lies something deeper: fear, care, and the desperate hope of keeping someone alive. This is the story of a young couple who clashed over one terrifying question. What if ignoring the truth means losing the future together? Part 1. The warning signs. It started with a stomachache. Not the kind that sends you running for a bottle of Pepto and then disappears. This one was nagging, persistent, the sort of discomfort that made Daniel press a hand against his abdomen when he thought no one was looking. I noticed it before he admitted it. Living together meant I caught the small things. The way he shifted in his chair after dinner, the extra long pauses in the bathroom, the quiet sighs when he stretched out on the couch. "Your stomach again?" I asked one evening as we cleared the table. Daniel shrugged, flashing that careless grin that usually melted my irritation. "Probably just stress. Work's been crazy. I've been eating too much takeout." But I wasn't convinced, because behind his grin was a shadow I couldn't ignore: the ghost of his mother's illness. I met her once, years after she'd beaten colon cancer, and I could still see how it had marked her. Thin scars on her stomach, a quiet weariness in her eyes. Daniel was a teenager when she got sick, old enough to understand the words chemo and survival rates, old enough to watch his strong, vibrant mom collapse into bed for weeks. So when his doctor told him last year that because of her history, he needed an early colonoscopy, it wasn't a surprise. What was surprising, what infuriated me, was how quickly Daniel brushed it off. "They're for old people," he said. "I'm only 33. Besides, it's gross. I don't need someone poking around back there." I laughed the first time he said it because it sounded absurd. But after 12 months of excuses, the laughter dried up. His stomach pains got worse. The excuses stayed the same. I begged, I reasoned, I sent him articles from the CDC. Nothing moved him. And then, last Thursday night, the fight exploded. It began almost casually. We were curled up in bed, the glow of Netflix flickering against the walls. Daniel shifted, rubbed his side, and muttered, "Ugh, my stomach again." Something in me snapped. "You're being an idiot," I blurted. The words hung there, sharp and ugly. His head jerked toward me. "What did you just say?" "You heard me," I said, my voice shaking now, not with anger, but fear. "Your mom went through hell because of this, and you're ignoring every warning sign. You're overdue for a colonoscopy. You're 33. You've been having stomach problems for months, and you're pretending it's nothing because you're embarrassed?" His face hardened. "It's not that simple." "It is that simple," I shot back. "You're scared they might find something bad, right? That's the point. That's why people get screened, so if something's wrong, they catch it before it's too late." Silence. The TV kept playing, laugh track echoing against the walls, a cruel contrast to the storm in our bedroom. Finally, Daniel sat up, swinging his legs off the bed. "You don't get it," he muttered. "You don't know what it's like to watch someone go through that. To think every single day that maybe it's genetic, maybe you're doomed too. You don't know how it feels to walk into a hospital for a test that could ruin your life." I softened for just a second. I did know he was scared, but fear wasn't an excuse to gamble with your life. "Daniel," I said quietly, "I love you, but I can't plan a future with someone who won't take care of himself. I don't want to bury you in 10 years because you were too stubborn to do a test. I won't do that." The ultimatum was out before I could stop myself. His shoulders stiffened, and he turned to look at me with eyes full of hurt. "You're being controlling, dramatic. I can't believe you'd threaten me like that." And then he left the room. The next morning, the silence was deafening. He barely said goodbye before leaving for work. My stomach twisted as I rinsed out his coffee mug. Had I gone too far? Was I cruel for calling him an idiot, for making his health the hill I was willing to die on? But then I thought about the headlines I'd seen online. Young father dies at 35 from undiagnosed colon cancer. She thought she was too young. She wasn't. I thought about his mom, gaunt and exhausted in the photos on their mantle, about the way his hand instinctively pressed his stomach when he thought no one noticed. I was supposed to stay quiet, pretend it was fine, let him avoid the truth until the truth killed him. That night, I sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through Reddit. I typed into the search bar, AITA for calling my boyfriend an idiot because he won't get a colonoscopy. I hesitated, then hit post. The internet would tell me if I'd gone too far, but deep down, I already knew. This wasn't about being right or wrong. It was about saving the man I loved from himself. And I wasn't sure which would hurt worse, losing him to cancer or losing him because I couldn't keep my mouth shut.
Part 2. The internet weighs in. The post went up at 11:42 p.m. I didn't expect much, maybe a handful of comments, the usual blend of internet sarcasm and sympathy. But by the time I woke up the next morning, my phone was buzzing non-stop. Notifications lit up the screen like a Christmas tree. Hundreds of people had seen it. Hundreds of strangers dissecting the ugliest fight of my relationship. I made coffee and sat down at the table, my thumbs scrolling nervously. The verdict? Overwhelmingly clear. NTA, he's literally playing with his life. My dad thought the same way. We buried him at 50. Don't let your boyfriend be next. This isn't controlling, it's caring. He needs a wake-up call. For every harsh reply that told me I was right, there were softer ones too. Stories spilled into the comments like a flood. People who'd lost parents young, partners who ignored screenings, families blindsided by the words stage 4. I sat there reading until my coffee went cold. My heart hurt for all of them, but mixed with sorrow was a small ember of vindication. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't cruel. I screenshot a few of the most powerful comments, planning to show Daniel. Maybe hearing it from strangers would help. But when he came home that evening, the tension was thick enough to slice with a knife. He dropped his keys on the counter, avoided my eyes, and grabbed a beer from the fridge. "How was your day?" I asked carefully. "Fine." His tone was flat, guarded. I hesitated, then slid my phone across the table. I posted about our fight online. People responded. "I want you to read this." His eyes flicked down at the screen. The headline, AITA for calling my boyfriend an idiot because he won't get a colonoscopy, stared back at him. His jaw tightened. "You told the internet about this?" "Yes," I admitted, because I didn't know if I was being unfair. I needed perspective. And guess what? Almost everyone agrees you need to get the test. His face flushed red. "So now I'm supposed to listen to a bunch of strangers who don't even know me?" "They know cancer," I shot back. "They know what happens when people ignore it. They've lived it." He slammed the beer onto the counter, foam spilling over the edge. "You had no rights to air my personal life out there. No right." I flinched at the anger in his voice. He wasn't the type to yell, but tonight his frustration bubbled over. "I did it because I love you. Because I'm scared of losing you." For a moment, the fight drained out of him. His shoulders slumped. He rubbed his forehead like he was trying to erase the entire day. "You don't get it," he said softly. "When my mom was sick, our whole house turned into a hospital. The smell of antiseptic, the constant fear, the way she cried when she thought I couldn't hear her. Every scan, every test, it was like waiting for a bomb to go off. I can't put myself back there, not even for one day." I reached for his hand, but he pulled away. "You think I'm scared of the test. I'm not. I'm scared of what comes after. I'm scared of living the same nightmare again. Only this time, it's me." His voice cracked on the last word. I wanted to hold him, to promise him everything would be fine. But I couldn't promise that. What I could promise was worse, that avoiding it would make the nightmare certain instead of hypothetical. "Daniel," I said gently, "your fear makes sense. I get it, I really do. But hiding from it won't save you. It'll just make the bomb bigger when it goes off." He stared at me for a long time, then shook his head. "I need space." That night, he slept on the couch. The weekend was a blur of silence. He left early Saturday morning claiming he had errands and didn't come back until after dark. Sunday, he busied himself in the garage. Every time I tried to talk, he shut down. I turned back to Reddit for solace. More comments poured in. Some people tell me to stand my ground. Don't marry someone who refuses to protect their health. Others urge compassion. He's traumatized, therapy might help. One message stuck with me. A woman wrote, "My husband ignored his screenings. By the time they found the tumor, it was too late. Please, please don't let fear steal your future. Push him, even if he hates you for it now. Hate fades. Cancer doesn't." I read that one 3 times, my chest tightening with each pass. By Monday morning, I was exhausted. My partner was drifting further away and I didn't know how to reach him. As he grabbed his keys for work, I blurted out, "Will you at least see a therapist? Talk about your fears with someone. If you won't do the colonoscopy yet, just do that." He paused at the door. His eyes softened for a fraction of a second, then hardened again. "I'll think about it," he muttered, and left. That night, I sat alone in our bedroom scrolling endlessly. My post had hit the front page of the Reddit subreddit. Thousands of people had weighed in. And in the middle of the sea of comments, one stood out, a doctor. As a gastroenterologist, I've seen too many young patients regret putting this off. If he's 33 with a first-degree relative diagnosed in their 40s, he's already late. This isn't just about him. It's about everyone who loves him. Remind him of that. I closed my eyes, the doctor's words echoing in my head. Late. Already late. And suddenly, the fear I'd been carrying curdled into something darker, because maybe I wasn't overreacting. Maybe Daniel wasn't just procrastinating. Maybe even now, the nightmare had already begun. Part 3. Ghosts of the Past. Daniel didn't like to talk about his childhood. On the surface, his family looked like the all-American picture. Small house in the suburbs, a dad who coached Little League, a mom who baked cookies for every school fundraiser. But cancer didn't care about picture-perfect families. When Daniel was 13, everything cracked. It started with whispers in the kitchen. He remembered lying in bed, overhearing his parents' hushed voices. Polyp, tumor, surgery. Words that meant nothing to him at the time, but carried a weight that made his stomach twist.
The first time he saw his mother after surgery, he froze. She was pale, lips cracked, tubes snaking out from under the hospital gown. Her smile was weak, but she forced it anyway. "Hey, sweetie," she whispered. He wanted to run. Instead, he clutched the foot of the bed, trying to look braver than he felt. Then came the chemo. His once vibrant mom, who used to chase him around the yard, shrank into a shadow of herself. She lost her hair. She lost her appetite. She lost the easy laugh that used to fill their home. And Daniel, still just a kid, lost his sense of safety. Every beep of the hospital monitors, every hushed conversation between doctors felt like a countdown. He carried those memories like invisible scars. Years later, sitting alone in the garage after our fight, Daniel picked up an old cardboard box with family photos he hadn't looked at in years. His mom, before the illness, beaming in a wide-brimmed hat at the beach. His mom, during treatment, wrapped in a blanket on the couch. Her smile tired, but determined. He remembered nights when he would sneak into her room just to check that she was still breathing. He remembered the day she collapsed in the kitchen and the ambulance lights painted their walls red. Most of all, he remembered the fear that never left. The fear that one day it would be him. That fear wasn't just about cancer. It was about control. Back then, he had no control at all. He watched helplessly as his mom fought for her life. He watched his dad cry behind closed doors, thinking no one saw. And now as an adult, the thought of willingly stepping back into that world, of lying on a hospital bed, waiting for test results, felt unbearable. Better not to know, he told himself. Better to keep the monster in the dark. Meanwhile, inside the house, I sat at the kitchen table, scrolling through the doctor's comment on my Reddit post for the 100th time. "He's already late." The words pulsed in my head like a heartbeat. I knew I had to find another way to reach him. Logic wasn't working, threats weren't working. Maybe empathy would. That night, when he finally came in from the garage, I didn't mention colonoscopies, I didn't mention Reddit. Instead, I asked softly, "What was it like when your mom was sick?" He froze. For a moment, I thought he'd ignore me, like always. But then, slowly, he sat down across from me. His hands fidgeted with the hem of his shirt. "It was hell," he admitted. His voice was low, almost a whisper. "She was the strongest person I knew, and cancer, it just broke her. I remember watching her cry in the bathroom because she didn't want me to see her bald. I remember thinking she might die and leave me forever." His eyes shimmered. He blinked hard, swallowing the tears. "That's why you won't get tested," I said gently. He nodded, not looking at me. "You think if you don't take the test, you can avoid reliving it?" He let out a bitter laugh. "Yeah, pretty stupid, right?" "Not stupid," I corrected. "Human. But you're letting 13-year-old Daniel make 33-year-old Daniel's choices. You're still that scared kid hiding from the monster in the closet, but you're not powerless anymore. You get to choose now. You get to fight before the monster gets too big." He looked at me then, really looked. His eyes were red, raw. For a moment, I thought he might break, might finally agree, but instead, he shook his head. "I can't. Not yet." That night, he crawled into bed beside me for the first time in days. His body curled toward mine, tense at first, then slowly relaxing. I lay awake listening to his breathing, my mind spinning. He had opened the door a crack, but fear still kept him from stepping through. How much time did we have before it was too late? A week later, his mom came to visit. She'd been cancer-free for years now, but the battle left its marks. She walked slower, tired more easily, but her smile was as warm as ever. We sat around the kitchen table drinking tea when she noticed Daniel pressing his stomach again. "You okay, honey?" she asked. "Just indigestion," he muttered. Her eyes narrowed. She knew. Of course she knew. "Daniel," she said firmly, "have you had your colonoscopy yet?" The air went still. He avoided her gaze. "Not yet." She reached across the table, took his hand in both of hers. "Don't make the same mistake I did. I ignored the signs until it was almost too late. You're lucky. You have the chance to catch it early. Please don't waste that." For the first time, I saw his tough exterior crack, not with anger, but with shame. He nodded mutely, unable to answer. After she left, he sat in silence for a long time. Then he whispered, "She still worries about it, even now. I don't want to put you through that." I touched his arm. "The only way to protect me is to protect yourself." That night, Daniel lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He remembered being 13, hearing his mom cry in the next room. Now, 20 years later, he realized the cycle was repeating, not with her, but with me. And suddenly, he wondered if maybe running from the test wasn't saving him at all. Maybe it was just hurting the people he loved the most.
Part 4. The Breaking Point. The days after his mother's visit felt different. Daniel was quieter, less defensive. He didn't snap when I asked about his stomach, though he still brushed it off. But there was a heaviness to him, like he was carrying a decision around in his pocket, weighing it over and over. I noticed him scrolling on his phone late at night, long after I'd pretended to fall asleep. Articles about colon cancer, forums filled with people his age talking about screenings, survivor stories, obituaries. He thought I didn't see, but I did. One night, I found him standing in the bathroom, shirt lifted, staring at his reflection. His hand traced absent circles over his stomach as if searching for answers in the skin. When he caught me watching, he looked startled, caught, vulnerable. "Do you ever feel like your body's a ticking bomb?" he asked quietly. The question hit me in the chest. "No," I admitted, "but I feel like your body might be, and I can't turn that fear off." He didn't answer. He just turned back to the mirror, eyes dark. The breaking point came a week later. It was a Tuesday morning, nothing special. Daniel was running late for work, gulping down coffee and shoving files into his bag. Then halfway through his toast, he froze. His face went pale. "Bathroom," he muttered, stumbling down the hall. Minutes passed, then more. Finally, I knocked. "You okay?" His voice was thin. "There's blood." My heart stopped. When he opened the door, his face was ashen. He didn't need to explain. I saw the panic in his eyes. "This isn't nothing anymore," I whispered. He sank onto the edge of the tub, burying his face in his hands. For the first time, I saw raw terror on his face, the kind that strips away every layer of denial. "I can't do this," he choked out. "I can't go back to hospitals. I can't sit in a waiting room wondering if they're about to tell me I'm dying. I can't." I knelt in front of him, forcing him to meet my eyes. "You don't have to do it alone. I'll be there. Every appointment, every result, every awful waiting room. I'll sit right next to you. But you have to go. Please, Daniel, please." He stared at me for a long time.
His chest rose and fell like a man drowning. And then finally he nodded. "Okay," he whispered. "I'll do it." Making the call was harder than it should have been. He sat with the phone in his hand for 20 minutes, thumb hovering over the dial. When the nurse picked up, his voice cracked as he gave his name, his age, his family history. The appointment was set for 3 weeks later. The moment he hung up, he collapsed into my arms. His body shook with silent sobs, equal parts relief and dread. "You did it," I whispered into his hair. "That's the bravest thing you've ever done." But I knew it was only the beginning. The weeks leading up to the procedure were tense. Daniel swung between determination and panic. Some days he'd joke about it. "Guess I get a free day off work for someone to invade my dignity." Other days he'd spiral into dark silence, imagining worst-case scenarios. I did what I could. I cooked healthier meals. I went on walks with him after dinner. I held him when he woke up from nightmares. And yet, the fear seeped into me too. Late at night, when he was asleep, I'd Google survival rates, procedure risks, everything I could find. I'd stare at him in the dim light, memorizing the shape of his face, just in case. The day before the procedure, he almost backed out. "What if they find something?" he whispered as we lay in bed. "Then we'll deal with it," I said firmly, "together." "What if it's nothing? Then you'll finally have peace of mind." He turned toward me, eyes glistening. "And what if I can't handle the answer?" I took his hand, pressing it to my chest. "Then let me handle it with you." The morning of the colonoscopy, the hospital smelled of antiseptic and nerves. Daniel was quiet, clutching the admission papers like they were a lifeline. As we sat in the waiting room, he leaned toward me and whispered, "This feels like being 13 again." I squeezed his hand. "This time, you're not the scared kid. You're the grown man who decided to face it before it's too late. That's the difference." When the nurse called his name, he hesitated. His eyes flicked to mine, desperate. "I'll be right here," I promised. And then he followed the nurse, disappearing down the hallway. The waiting was torture. Every minute stretched like an hour. I tried to distract myself with the magazine, but the words blurred. My mind replayed every fight we'd had about this, every sign we'd ignored, every worst-case scenario I couldn't stop imagining. Finally, after what felt like forever, the doctor came out. His expression was unreadable. He asked, "Are you his partner?" My heart pounded. "Yes." He gestured toward a private room. "Let's talk."
Part 5. The results. The doctor's office was small, too bright. The walls painted a sterile shade of beige. I sat on the edge of the chair, hands twisting in my lap, while the doctor shuffled through a stack of papers. Daniel sat beside me in a hospital gown, pale and quiet, his knee bouncing uncontrollably. The image of him, my strong, stubborn boyfriend, reduced to a bundle of nerves, broke my heart. Finally, the doctor looked up. "We did find something," he said calmly. Daniel's breath hitched. My hand shot out, gripping his. The doctor continued, "It's not cancer, but we found 2 polyps. One of them was precancerous. We removed them both during the procedure. You'll need regular follow-ups, but right now, you're okay." The words landed like a thunderclap. Not cancer, not yet. Relief and fear tangled together in my chest. Daniel sat frozen. "Precancerous?" he repeated, as if trying to taste the word. The doctor nodded. "That means if we hadn't found it, there's a strong chance it would have developed into cancer in the future. Catching it now was important. You did the right thing coming in." For a moment, silence filled the room. Then Daniel let out a shaky laugh, half relief,
half disbelief. He buried his face in his hands, his shoulders shaking. I squeezed his arm. See? This is why I pushed you. This is why I fought so hard. He turned toward me, eyes wet. You saved my life. The drive home was quiet, but different from the silence of the weeks before. This one wasn't heavy with anger or avoidance. It was heavy with realization. At a red light, Daniel finally spoke. All this time, I thought I was protecting myself by not knowing, but I was just gambling, and I almost lost. I reached over, lacing my fingers with his. Fear almost killed you, but courage saved you. He gave me a small, broken smile, and you did too. That night, we curled up on the couch, the weight of the past months hanging between us. For the first time in a long time, Daniel talked openly. I wasn't mad at you for pushing me, he admitted. I was mad at myself because I knew you were right. I just couldn't face it. Every time you brought it up, I felt like I was 13 again, helpless and terrified. And instead of admitting that, I hid behind anger. I brushed his hair back from his forehead. You don't have to be 13 anymore. You don't have to fight alone. You've got me, and you've got your mom. You've got people who want you here. His eyes softened. You almost gave up on me. I almost did, I confessed, because I was terrified of building a future with someone who refused to protect it. I couldn't watch you dig your own grave while I stood by. He pulled me closer, pressing his forehead to mine. I'm sorry for making you feel like you had to choose between loving me and saving me. I don't want to ever put you in that place again. The next morning, Daniel called his mom. I listened from the kitchen as he told her the results. Her gasp of relief echoed through the phone. I'm proud of you, honey, she said, her voice thick with emotion. You broke the cycle. You did what I didn't. When he hung up, his face was lighter, different, like a man who had looked death in the eye and realized he still had time. Weeks later, life began to feel normal again, but something had shifted. Daniel started cooking healthier meals, cutting back on alcohol. We signed up for a 5K together, more symbolic than athletic. He even joked about scheduling his next follow-up appointment early, just to be safe. And sometimes, late at night, when we lay tangled in bed, he'd whisper, "Thank you for not giving up on me." Looking back, I think about that Reddit post, the question I'd asked strangers in the middle of the night. Am I the asshole for calling my boyfriend an idiot? At the time, it felt like a desperate plea. Now it feels almost laughable. Because the truth is, love isn't always gentle. Sometimes love is blunt. Sometimes love is calling someone an idiot because you'd rather them hate you than die. I wasn't the asshole. I was scared. I was desperate. And maybe, just maybe, I was exactly what he needed. Months later, as we walked through the park on a sunny Saturday, Daniel squeezed my hand. You know, when we have kids someday, I'm gonna be that embarrassing dad who tells them about colonoscopies at the dinner table. I'll make sure they never ignore their health. I laughed. They're gonna hate you for that. Good, he grinned. That means they'll live long enough to forgive me. I stopped, turned to look at him, and kissed him right there in the middle of the path. Because in that moment, I wasn't kissing the man who almost let fear take him. I was kissing the man who chose life. And that was worth every fight, every tear, every sleepless night. In the end, it wasn't about insults or ultimatums. It was about love, raw and unpolished, pushing past fear. He faced the truth, and together they found hope where there had once been silence. Sometimes love means holding someone tight. Other times it means shaking them hard enough to wake them up. Either way, the message is the same. Life is fragile, and we fight hardest for the people we cannot imagine living without.
At LaLa Family, we believe that every story of family, whether it's about joy, struggle, loss, or new beginnings, has the power to connect us. Life is messy and unpredictable, but it's also filled with love, resilience, and moments worth sharing. That's why we've built this channel, to bring you powerful, heart-touching stories that remind us we're never truly alone. If you've ever faced hardship, if you've ever felt the weight of parenthood, or if you simply believe in the strength of love and community, this channel is for you. Our videos aren't just stories. They're windows into real human experiences that inspire hope, courage, and empathy. But we can't grow this community without you. By clicking subscribe, you're not just following a channel, you're joining a family. Every like helps us reach more people who may need to hear these stories right now. And every share spreads the message that even in the darkest times, there is always light to be found. So if these stories move you, if they make you think, or if they touch your heart even a little, don't just watch, take action. Hit that subscribe button, tap the like button, and share our videos with friends and loved ones. Together, we can build a community where stories heal, inspire, and bring people closer. Welcome to LaLa Family, where love, resilience, and hope live on.